welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise on Nile TV from the house or the museum of the Prince of Poets, Ahmed Shawqi, the place where he lived the last 12 years of his life with his family. And right now I'm honored to be having with me on Nile Cruise Dr. Wahid Mekhemar, the plastic artist, who will be talking to us more about the relationship of Ahmed Shawqi with the other artists of his generation. Dr. Wahid, thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Thank you for having me in this nice place.
Dr. Wahid, it's a pleasure to have you with us in today's episode, and I'd like to start asking you, the works of the late poet Ahmed Shawqi were varied, actually they were different, which called on the plastic artist to draw inspiration from their own ideas.
Ahmed Shawqi, if we're going to talk about the mood or the wave which is happening in this time, in Ahmed Shawqi was full of feeling of revolution and trying to express the national emotion during this time of occupation. If we go back to Ahmed Shawqi while he was studying in Montpellier in France, he was surrounded with so many intellectual people, and also afterwards there is a big movement of painters, Ramses Yunan, and this early movement of surrealism, and the national ideas was surrounded and was spreading in all minds, all feeling of writers like Shawqi and Hafiz Ibrahim, and by this time also was in theater, was in painting. So many movements of fine arts happened and was expressing about this. We seeing on the other hand, we seeing afterwards Mahmoud Mukhtar, who also studied in France. So it was the whole spirit, the whole feeling, the whole culture was surrounded of how to be supporting Egypt, especially against the occupation, and that's why they face and they suffer a lot of things. Even Shawqi wasn't a real Egyptian. He was his roots was Kurdish and Sharqs, but he grows in Egypt, and he felt of problems and painful of our society. You wouldn't believe that somebody like Shawqi was feeling of very simple people like farmers and how they suffer to feed the country, and also they changes. Someone, if you go back to Shawqi, you would expect somebody like him who grow in the palace of Ismail and the king in Khidewis and kings in this time. He dealing so much with the kingdom, but he went to the side of society. That show us how these people was more artists and thinkers, more than being dealing with authority and the power. And that's why he suffered all of these things exit him outside Egypt for years, and he never changed, and he come back, and he was making a lot of things, not only in poet, not only in writing, like they raised this magazine in France called Taqaddum, and he came back. Even, which is very strange, that Shawqi, the prince of classic poet, he came back and he wrote to Muhammad Abdul Wahab. He was adopting him, he grows him, he care of him, he care of his music, and he wrote for him in Amaya, especially to make his words close to the society, to erase, to encourage the awareness of being Egyptian and feeling of the value of our country.
Sir, many of the artists of plastic art in the Arab world are inspired by the poems of Ahmed Shawqi, of course. Your comment on the extent of his work linked to plastic art.
This is very important question because in plastic art is like writing. It's individual art. So the painter not only who have a skill of paint and drawing and the real artist have to have a lot of studying of history, studying of custom and manners, even fashion, decor, poetry, literature. So if we look to great painters or great artists, we find Ramses Yunan, we find Hamid Nada, El Ghazar, this generation afterwards. All of these people were totally involved in their culture and heritage. That's why their art touches everybody all over the world. Look at Mahmoud Mukhtar. Mahmoud Mukhtar, one person who's studying in France in very modern art. By this time was Cubism, Surrealism, and so many movements happening in Europe, especially in France where they lived, and Shawqi too. But the power of Egyptian culture, look at statues of Mukhtar. You find a touch of modernism and a real Egyptian thoughts in composition, in the weight of the statue. And out of our palace in the garden, we sing Gamal Sigeni, and I have an honor, he was one of my teachers. Gamal Sigeni made this statue of Shawqi. You see how he's sitting very strong, like king, like Egyptian kings. So that's why this heavy and strong culture and thoughts of Egyptian art. And I feel very sorry that in Fine Arts School, they taught us early, and I'm struggling up till now, to start with ancient Egyptian art, not with Greek or Roman. Because the Greek and Roman, they took from us. We didn't take from them. Look at
Ancient Egypt.
Of course,
Yes.
of course. Look at the greatest artists all over the world. Picasso, Salvador Dali. All of these people studying Egyptian art because you find the catalog, you find the roots, you find the old thoughts in Egyptian art. You find comics, you find statues, you find painting, you find even cinema. In what you're seeing in Egyptian art, you're seeing stories, you're seeing cinema, you're seeing history. That's why Egyptian painters was very aware to study their heritage. They studied Shawqi, they studied Hafiz Ibrahim, they studied Motran, they studied even some poet who came from Lebanon, like Gobran, like who came from
Ramadi.
Tunisia. Yes, all of these people come and they study and they take from our heritage and history. So it's not odd for painters to study and to even write, to paint some of his art. And also cinema took from Shawqi. You seeing Cleopatra, Muhammad Abdul Wahab, this operetta on cinema.
Umm Kulthum.
Oh, and Kulthum, of course. Yes.
Sir, the title of Prince of Poets can always we recognized, of course, the most important features of his poetry. Of course, that we as Egyptians, which made the Arabs call him this title from your own point of view, sir?
First of all, is the language. I mean, the classic poet, because this make it readable and people can understand all over the Arab world, not accent, because the slang sometimes you don't understand it. Even in the same country, not only Arab countries, but his writing was in classic. So this is first of all, and also the beat and the nerve and the feeling and emotion. By this time, it's very important for artists what you are saying in this time to meet and to feel and to explore the emotion and feeling, and you have to be also as an artist sincere and honest, and this is what happened to him. He was having courage enough to say whatever he wants, even he suffered from. And this is make not only mottos, but you practice what you preach, what you want to do. What you're saying is going so much with your behavior and action. Not only saying something and I'm seeing doing something, climbing for a position or being a star, or these people know. These people was seeing all of their words and their movements, like Mustafa Kamil by this time, with the things they believe in it and they sacrifice everything for it. That's why I think.
Yes, and the final question, Dr. Wahid. He had a different relationship with Kulthum. How was it?
With Kulthum, it's totally different because Abdul Wahab was totally surrounded and cared by Shawki, and he was, like we say, Abdul Wahab was the melody of Shawki. Kulthum is totally different if you're going to her personality. Kulthum is a girl who came from a little village, having a project in her mind. Don't miss. She is this little girl. She took her family and she took in her mind her project. Took Sheikh Abu Al-Ala Muhammad, Sheikh Mahmoud Subh. All of these people, Kulthum took them to her project. And Kulthum, when she went to Shawki, went to pick what she wants to say out of his words. So that's totally different. Shawki was part of her project, but Abdul Wahab was everything for Shawki.
Your final words, sir, when we come to describe the Prince of Poets, Ahmad Shawki.
Shawki, not only a good poet, Shawki is a part of our national movement, a part of our history, not only in politics, in art, in music, and still Shawki was a writer and poet who made an inspiration and movement, a revolution in the way he writes, and also was inspiring all generation in classic poet and even in local poet, because nobody would believe that Shawki was going to write in Ammiya, in local, just to reach people. And this is, I think, when Ammiya started with Pyramid Tonsi, Salah Jahin, Fuad Haddad, he was announcing this, and he's starting to get and prove the important role of Ammiya Masriya.
Yes, Dr. Wahid Mekhemar, the plastic artist, thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Dear viewers, stay with us. We'll be back again. We still have more about the Prince of Poets, Ahmad Shawki. Stay with us and don't go away.